Let me tell you how much I used to love this show/book series. For about a year, my bio in dating apps reads, "If you know who Sir Humphrey Appleby is, we'll be good friends." Sadly, no one did. There was a guy who asked, was Sir Humphrey a jazz musician? Maybe he played an instrument? I was like, dude, that's Duke Ellington. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we should do something different than all of the past videos. Because today we are talking about, in my heart, the greatest political satire show of all time, ever in human history. When I was studying for an international politics master degree, I first watched it, first time, thoroughly, as a leisure. I loved it instantly because it was absolutely hilarious and it showed so many insights about bureaucracy and flaws in political systems. Then I was told there were 2 books that were written based on the show, published after the show was broadcast. So naturally, I first bought the 2 Chinese versions, read them both, loved it. And then when I was traveling back to UK for work a few years ago, I bought the original English version and a complete set of the DVDs, which I think it's in my dad's house now. The show, if you are British, or if you studied or read about politics, or if you enjoy watching British satire shows or old shows, you might have came across it. Yes, Minister and Yes, Prime Minister by Jonathan Lin and Anthony J. There are 5 seasons of this whole complete series. The first 3 were Yes, Minister. As the title suggested, it was about a cabinet minister called Jim Hacker. In the first episode, Hacker's party won the general election, and he was appointed Minister of Administrative Affairs, long name, which was a fictional department in London Whitehall. The story unfolds as Hacker started his minister career, facing the department's permanent undersecretary, Sir Humphrey, and his personal secretary, Bernard Woolley. In each episode, there is either a political crisis that needed to be solved, or Hacker wanted to do something, but the civil service, aka Sir Humphrey, basically, fought back and won almost every time, almost, except a few exceptions. They called the fight between politicians and civil service house training, meaning if the house training is successful, the minister or any politicians as the head of the department or even the country would be well-behaved, doesn't ask questions, doesn't want to do anything, bring any changes. After the first 3 minister series, in a Christmas special episode called Party Games, the previous prime minister stepped down and Hacker was selected as the new prime minister by the ruling party and the civil service. Then it came the Yes, Prime Minister series. It had only 2 seasons because the actor who played Jim Hacker in the BBC show, Paul Eddington, had cancer and later died. The name of both series came from a line that in every episode, Sir Humphrey or Bernard, the 2 secretaries, will always tell Jim Hacker, Yes, Minister or Yes, Prime Minister. Now, I want to start by explaining why I love the show and why I think it's the best political sitcom of all time. The most obvious reason would be it is incredibly funny through and through. I have watched the show maybe at least 10 times. Still, I laugh very hard each time. There were a lot of quotes coming from this show that are still being mentioned by media or on social media as relevant. I can give a few examples just by memory. Opposition is about asking difficult questions, government is about not answering them. Can the red line get us through Kremlin? Yes, but the operator on the other side doesn't speak much English. People have the right to know. No, people have the right to be ignorant. UK's defense system is to let people believe that they are protected, but in fact we are just a missile launch station for America. I remember one of the most hilarious scenes in Party Games where the head of civil servants were discussing who they should pick as the new prime minister. Both of them, Sir Arnold and Sir Humphrey, sat down and asked, the other 2 candidates are both interventionists who believed they would run the country themselves if they became prime minister. So who can we choose as a compromise candidate? And I quote here, malleable, fixable, likable, no firm opinion, no bright ideas, not intellectually committed, without the strength of purpose to change anything, can be manipulated, professionally guided, as they said, later changed. Leave the business of government to the expert, them, the secretaries, the civil servants. Then these two permanent secretaries busted to laugh together as they realized hacker was their only choice.
The minister?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
As Prime Minister?
Yes. Are you in a hurry?
No, I'm just checking to see it wasn't April the 1st.
What's more funny was, after Hacker retired as the Prime Minister in the book, he was hailed as the best Prime Minister UK ever had after World War II. So, imagine irony. You can find something laughable almost every minute of this show. And as a show that each episode is less than 30 minutes, there are a lot of good stuff for the audience to unpack. It was absolutely top-tier jokes. Followed by that, the reason why I think the show today is still very relevant. And let me remind you, the first episode of this series was broadcasted in 1980, so 45 years ago. Every topic in the series are timeless. Politics, power struggle, journalism and the relationship between media and government, diplomacy, economic problem, unemployment rate, wildlife protection, gender equality, how to answer a question without actually answering the question, the truth and what it appears to be. Speaking about gender equality, almost every woman in the story shows exceptional strength and intelligence compared to these three men in the story. For a female audience perspective like I have, I found it incredibly modern and relevant and smart. Every aspect of international news can be reflected in the series. You might watch a presidential debate and realized, wait, he didn't give an answer. Just like Humphrey in the show, he dodged it by throwing out a lot of nonsense. You can read about how UK government built up a fully equipped office or facility, but actually no one was using it. And Hacker's analysis of the British press, as a journalism bachelor student myself who studied in the UK, I just want to applaud. According to an obituary of the creator Anthony J from The Guardian, the show was originally inspired by Anthony J's early life experience. He was a producer for BBC nightly news program called Tonight in late 50s. Tonight was famous for the grilling interviews to the politicians, who Anthony J described as puppets driven by conflicts between ministers and permanent secretaries. The show took 20 years to get off the ground. Numerous former political advisors and ministers were consulted for the script. Purposely, the show did not point out which political party Hacker came from. There were no specific dates for the show either. Anthony J said himself in an interview that because they need to write everything in the head, they need to make jokes of something permanent rather than temporary, which was precisely the reason the show has a long-living popularity till now. It was also Mrs. Thatcher's favorite show, and former Prime Minister David Cameron told the journalist on record that, I can tell you, yes, Minister, is true. Now, in terms of the shows and the books, there is more reason that I think the two writers exceeded themselves in the books. The layer of the story goes beyond a TV show in both books. Because in the show, we see three actors having a power play with each other in every episode, fighting over issues. Hacker wanted to do something, actually achieve something, mostly for the votes and the press. But Humphrey, on behalf of the entire civil service system, who doesn't like changes, always block him or try to trick him. So we were witnessing as the third party of this story. But in the book, you can see from the first page, the two authors, Jonathan Lane and Anthony J, became two editors for a fictional hacker college from Oxford. The two books were actually a complete series of Hacker's diaries and memoir. Lin and Jay were his editors. So not only can you read about Hacker's experience, as he put it himself, you can actually read about footnotes and explanations of what actually happened compared to what Hacker thought or believed happened. The most hilarious part comes next. The two authors also draft up Whitehall documents, memos, and notes for all the characters in the story, so you can read about Sir Humphrey's notes as a contradiction to Hacker's memory. So another layer of the story. But that was not even the best part. In the TV show, Hacker's personal secretary, Bernard Woolley, was still relatively green. He sometimes asked naive questions. But in the story, it was later revealed that Bernard actually eventually became the head of civil service, as Humphrey did. This is after Hacker and Humphrey retired. Hacker retired as Prime Minister, got a college named after him in Oxford. Humphrey, who had a family feud with his daughter-in-law, I think, ended up in a facility. The two books, which were diaries and memories by Hacker, was in fact vetted, explained, and footnoted by Bernard, who was the only one remaining in power when the books published. He was the one hiding behind these two main characters who fought each other in every episode. With that layer, you started to view everything differently. How did Bernard grow from a personal secretary who asked Sir Humphrey, "I want to keep my conscience," to the person who replaced Sir Humphrey and became the most powerful figure in the UK? Which, by the way, when he asked Sir Humphrey, "I want to keep my conscience," Humphrey asked him back, "Where do you get that luxurious idea?" And together it drew a complete picture of the whole story. Therefore, I think the books wanted to discuss something far more significant than political sitcom mocking governments. The story tried to lay out something permanent: the power struggle of human beings, the relationship between comedy and tragedy. Although the lines are extremely funny, nothing was actually achieved, done in these two books, except as Prime Minister, Hacker got the cook. Everyone fought and tried their best, but ended up doing nothing, going nowhere. Two of them spent the rest of their lives in ways that I cannot say. You will probably have mixed feelings when you close the pages, as I did. I think that was the most brilliant part about this series. I laughed, I contemplated, and it left a mark in my reading journey. One last thing, just as an Easter egg to wrap, hopefully, today's video. The first episode of this show is called Open Government. It was Hacker's first big action after he became minister, to share government files and information with the public. At the end of both books, the government, or you could say the civil service, released a series of documents except for files that are secret, or lost in a fire, or floods, or still hold as national security secrets, and all the other reasons. And you can guess what's left in the file. The book put up 6 pages, blank pages, at the end. When you open the pages, after you read the story, all you can do is laugh. And that's why I think this is the best, absolutely best political satire ever. Blank page. That's all for today's video. I hope you like it, or I hope if you haven't watched the show, I hope you were thinking about watching it. Next week, I'm thinking about doing some content about Luigi Mangione, but I haven't made up my mind yet, so we'll see. Thank you for spending time with me, and hopefully see you next week. Bye bye.